Having issues with your crimp-on terminals? Well, stay tuned. After this, we're going to be showing you how to properly crimp on your crimp-on terminals. Here we go. Hello, my name is Hector Velazquez and welcome to another episode of GCSAA Inside the Shop. Today's going to be the first of 5 episodes where we're going to be going over electrical and some of the subject matter that involves electrical troubleshooting, reading schematics, things like that. But before we get into any of that, we need to learn how to properly repair once we find a problem in the electrical, right? So today we're going to be showing you how to properly crimp a crimp-on terminal. That's right, as simple as this may sound, there's actually a wrong way to do it. And we want to make sure that we do this right, because having a bad crimp on a crimp-on terminal can be pretty disastrous. Now, there's tools in the market that helps us achieve a 100% properly crimped terminal every single time. And we're going to be going over that today. So now, let's go ahead and get started. All right, what do I mean by a bad crimp? Well, check this one out. We got a bunch of wires exposed right on the front of that terminal. That's not good. And then this one, we have all this wire exposed in the back. This could be disastrous in our electrical system and for computer and sensitive components, even a potential fire in our equipment. Look at this one. We hardly have that wire being engaged fully into the barrel of the terminal. And it's loose. That could be a problem. Now this one, for obvious reasons, it's bad, but then if you notice on this non-insulated terminal, it got placed upside down on the crimper. We'll talk more about that later. Now let's talk about how to strip a wire. Now most of us have these type of wire strippers in our toolbox, and they're great. Now you want to make sure you're using the correct gauge slot for the wire that you have. In our case is 12, and you want to just cut a 1/4 inch of insulation. Now the problem sometimes I run into with these is that you end up cutting into the strands, and we don't want to be doing that. And that's why I like using these dual action wire strippers. They cut and strip the wires all in one shot, just like that. Now check it out. Not a single strand has been cut in this process, and that's what we're looking for. Now most of us have crimpers just like this, and these are great crimpers, but they're a universal crimper. They depend on our strength. Sometimes we could squeeze too hard, which will smash the wires, or sometimes we're not squeezing hard enough, which will give us a loose connection, and that'll be a high resistance point. And that's why I like using these crimpers. These are ratcheting crimpers. This particular one comes with different dies for non-insulated and insulated terminals, even ferrules. It's like 5 tools in one. Let me show you how this works. And we're going to try these with insulated terminals. Now these terminals are color-coded, blue, yellow, red, and that corresponds with the gauge wires they're for. Now we're going to strip a 1/4 inch of insulation. Right in between these 2 sections right here, that's the barrel of the terminal. We want to make sure we can get that fully engaged in there. Now here's our crimpers with insulated terminal dies. Now there is a back side, which is this side right here. And then there's a front side, which is this side over here. So we want to make sure we're placing the terminals correctly in the die. And it's going to slide in here just like this. It's a yellow terminal, which is 10 to 12 gauge. All right, now we're going to insert our wire, and you want to make sure that the insulation of the wire bottoms out to the barrel of the terminal. And we got some being shown to the front, so we're going to crimp. And what I like about these crimpers, they won't release until you crimp all the way. So it's going to be the same exact crimp every single time. And look at that. That looks great, looks good. It's tight. You can see a little bit of wire in the front, 0 wires on the back, completely insulated. And it's a strong crimp. That looks great. All right, now what about the non-insulated terminals? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and switch out our dies on our crimper. And on this particular style, they're really easy. Unscrew the 2 wires and we'll switch out the dies. Now these crimpers are available at any auto store or tool supply shop. I got this set from Amazon myself. Alright, now we're ready to crimp on some non-insulated terminals. And these work exactly the same way as the insulated terminals dies. Now, these are not color coded, but if you look at the back of these terminals, it gives you the size of the terminal plus the size gauge wires they're for. And this one is 12 to 10. Now here we have a seam on the barrel. Now let me talk to you more about that. There's a correct way to put this on the die. Let me show you. What you want to do is have that seam facing the valley of the die. Just like this, away from the teeth or the part that makes the impression on the barrel of the terminal. We're going to insert our wire. We're going to crimp. We got some showing in the front there, which is what we want. And now we're going to crimp until the crimper releases. There we go. And look at the huge difference that makes. Nice, clean crimp, strong, completely engaged in the wire. Now, because these are non-insulated, you're going to want to use some shrink tubing like this. And using a heat gun, you can shrink the tubing right into place. And look at that. That looks great, professional, and ready to go. Now, speaking of shrink tubing, they do have terminals with shrink tubing built into them. Just like this. Again, these are color-coded for the gauge wires that you're using. And this part right here is not only the insulation, but it's also shrink tubing. Let me show you what I mean. We got it placed into our crimper. We got our wire in there. Now we're going to crimp until the crimper releases. There we go. We're going to inspect. Looks good, nice and strong. And just using our heat gun, we can shrink our shrink tubing on the terminal. And just that quick, nice and easy. Well, as you can see, crimp-on repairs are relatively easy with the right set of tools. I want to thank you for joining me here today on GCSAA Inside the Shop, where we're helping technicians one wrench at a time.